I'll be talking today from Esther Perel on successful relationships. She says there's always going to be other, which is not necessarily better. There's lots of people we can love and only a few to make a life with. It's not always the same. And our values enter in a lot when it comes to reconciling the amazing love story of who we can never live with or create a life together. For example, whether it's because of money, work, children, travel, etc., like the worldviews that are incompatible for building family, home, future trajectory, even though it can be a transportative experience, because for that need or the shared mission, values or vision, it's beyond the domain of feelings, it's more in the domain of beliefs. And so we have to examine our views about connection and emotional expressiveness, power, independence, and separateness. And the things that attract us because they're specifically different will become the very thing that could later specifically be the source of conflicts and difficulty. So when we look at a committed relationship, it's like creating a world. And being in a relationship is not just for what it can give us, but what we can give the other. And we have to balance our fear of abandonment with the fear of losing ourselves, each one individually. And we start before entering a relationship with what do I want to give someone versus who do I want to meet with what characteristics I want. And picking someone because we're ready, there was plenty of perfectly suitable others before, is what happens. There's no best because we're not either the best. It takes maturity. So our relationships, whether we would call it an emotional relationship, sexual relationship, mental relationship, spiritual relationship, they impact our happiness because life is with people. And there's something called choice overload, and when there's infinite options, they have something called consumer blindness. We think we will find the best partner rather than actually choose what feels right and then sort of stick with our choice. And there's something like this collectivist social organization which is concerned with others' well-being, and we're actually shifting toward this in order, I think they call it, actually, this is not what she wrote, but what she spoke about, but Nash's equilibrium is that if everybody does the best for themselves, everyone's going to be happy. It is founded on the true altruistic balance and harmony of nature, that if everyone is actually doing what they need, they won't overcompensate, becoming greedy in other areas. They're going to be getting their needs met in the areas they need it, and they won't be going out of their way to sort of get others' portion in something else. So we're moving toward this individualistic right to entitlement to self-happiness. This is not official entitlement, it's the entitlement to self-happiness. And it's not selfish, it's self-happiness, the real self. And this is how we are an individualistic approach, because if we are not individually happy, we won't recognize the individual right to happiness for each one individually either. So anyway, for a relationship, successful relationships, we have to do something expressive or creative every single day. It can be small. And there's also something called the erotic space, which is no good citizenship. We can transgress, be naughty, playful, mischievous, and free together. Now, if somebody's religious or spiritual and they have beliefs where they can't do certain things, we're not talking about that. We're talking about where you could break the rules a little bit together, the rules you have about how you're supposed to perform in the world, what you would show strangers, how you show up in your role and your identity, in a certain way. This is the place, you don't have to be good, So also, we don't want to give our best to everyone else and give our leftovers to our partner. And we have to stay appreciative, grateful, and acknowledging always, and focus on what I can do to benefit us, taking accountability in terms of novelty. We have to manage our expectations on purpose, not only after the fact. We have to lower our expectations to be realistic, not just, oh, we've been disappointed, okay, let me lower my expectations. She says tiny sacrifices rather than the minimum to avoid scolding. Make little tiny sacrifices all the time rather than just do the minimum so that the person won't get upset. We have to do things that matter to the other because they matter to him or her. So not just because it matters to make them happy, but because it matters to them. So privacy and space, respect the separation. This is what allows for existence of flourishing and exploring and even admiration, because we could see the otherness in them. And we can get our many attachment needs met through other people so that the partner is not seen from a place of dependence with a lens of need, creating insecurity, resentment, not even appreciating them. We need people to talk to, be supported by, who get excited for us, who accompany us, who assist us with things, all that are not just our partner. And that's not expecting someone to cure our existential loneliness that each one individually is in the world, without anyone ever being inside of them with them. So, we left the village or the community, And there's something called the cornerstones of love, she calls it. One of them is trust, one of them is intimacy, one of them is affection, and one of them is a desire. So it's like when we don't have enough trust or enough desire, intimacy, or affection, it gets off balance. Cornerstone means it's like you're building a house together, you're building a relationship, you're building a world together. When we are evolving, flexible, fluid, it's like what worked for 2 or in 20s doesn't work for 3 or 4 or in 40s. So we have to reinvent and redefine the brand, the strategy, the structure of ourself, of our relationship, and manage the pull-push between, not the pull-push, but like the pressure and the freedom of innovation and tradition. So sometimes couples come together to help, like, to hear the partner in a completely new way, because through someone else's voice in different words, like, enough distance to not be instantly reactive and defensive. Like, a group retreat helps to combat the isolating that often occurs in a coupling unit, like when they have pretty much a witness, so you're aware of others. It's not just the way you would automatically, your auto response to your partner, you would actually have to recognize other people are listening. Like, you treat your partner like a new person. Like, they don't just have to put up with you the way they did, and they don't just have to listen to you the way they used to. Like, as if people are watching, as if people are listening, not just the two of you. Like, let them become their new person they're always becoming. We can sit and talk like the two partners and ask how we're doing, what are the strengths between us, what's been good, what can we do better. This could happen every year, every other year. We could have a little summit or a ceremony. Where are we at? What's different? And sometimes we have to look at endings not as a failure, but as a relationship that was a success, as a teacher. And while some things are done poorly, many things were done well. And it's a beautiful time to appreciate the good stuff through something called conscious uncoupling. And it's like, goodbye, this is what I really am thankful for that we had. This is what I'll take with me. This is what I wish for you as we move forward. This is how I cope. This is how I hope others will remember us. You know, for example, if there's kids or friends. And it has to be customizable. Like, the two have to figure out not the uncoupling, but the actual coupling has to be customizable. The two have to figure out what definition of monogamy actually applies to them. And I know in Judaism we have, like, you shouldn't even be alone without your, with any man except your husband. So, it has to be, and seeing monogamy as a practice, because we aren't necessarily biologically or evolutionarily, I'm going to use the word biologically, but, for some people it would be the word evolutionarily speaking, monogamous. Like, as a choice, as a continuum without strict boundaries, because, for example, like in Judaism we say, just in case you're alone with someone, it could be that you might cheat on your husband. Chas v'shalom. So we make these traditional rules, and you have to be creative about how you follow them, so that even in your business, even with your doctor, like, in all the situations, you could, like, it's a practice of how to not succumb to, like, a temptation. Originally, they say monogamy was historically, because it was for patrimony, or in other words, the to know that that's the father of the child. So whether it's marriage or children, and it was arranged, it was almost mercantile. Like, it could have been like for business, like, oh, we like this family, we're going to marry into that family, let's marry a daughter to their son. And so as, for example, sex gets brought into love, and passion into marriage, and decisions like divorce are for the adults, not kids. It's about no right answers. We have to see where it's going to go, and only by examining it. And we also have to recognize that we live in a certain time now where men are raised by single mothers or with absent fathers, and they're often either more emotionally fluent and in touch, or emotionally literate because of having to be with a mother, like having to balance out with the mother, versus in what we might call the old world, where men were kind of like emotionally stunted, or just like to go work, hunt, gather, and like come back and like not care about feelings. And also, like, we have to recognize that, especially when we're dealing with fantasies and memories, monogamy doesn't exist. It's like the experience, not necessarily the commitment. Ideally, like in an idea, you could say, oh, they committed to me, it turned me on, but it's not, or it made me connected, but it's not like the fact that that's actually the memory of the fantasy. We don't remember in that way. Our memory would be, oh, they committed, like, as a fact, but not the experience of long-term commitment. In other words, remember what she said, they could be transportive, even if we turns out we didn't have the same values, and transporting us to ourself. And what's his name? Ram Dass is his teaching name. He said, we're all just walking each other home. And finally, living apart together. This is like what used to be like a separation, where each one has their own space in life while being willing to create a life and relationship together. This is often happening with older couples, but sometimes they say like with their separation and living separate lives, but still having a life together. It was like, we used to call it long distance, or people would say they're like separated and they're still married, and then eventually they get back together. But in this case, there's like, it's not a temporary thing, and it's not either like, as a way of holding someone far away, of avoiding intimacy. It's actually having your own separate life, a full life, and also a shared life together, each one separately and together. Wish you an amazing Shabbos. The meditation I've been thinking about is Tzadik Yesod Olam, which is Tzadik is foundation of the world, the secret of the world, the creation of the world, the righteousness, the uprightness. Be well. Bye.